good evening, everyone. We are glad to have you with us tonight. My name is Charlene Margot, and I'm co-founder of nonprofit The Parent Venture that produces this program, the Parent Education Series, now in its 19th year. We are honored and delighted to have with us tonight Dr. Kelly McGonigal from Stanford, who actually has been speaking in this program for years since her first book came out. But it's a big, big treat to have her with us tonight, especially to be talking about why joy matters and how to choose joy every day. I don't have to tell you all, this seems like a tough time to be choosing joy every day, but we're going to find out how to do that.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be back with this community. Oh, and I saw the little heart come up. Thank you. Um, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to share something that brings you joy. So I'm going to be brave and go first because it can feel a little risky to share publicly what brings you joy. And I'm going to attempt to show you a video that I took on Monday when I was at the Santa Barbara Sea Center, and I got to make a new friend. So fingers crossed. It's a very short video, and it'll take me one moment to get these slides up. Okay, so the ridiculous voice, if you're able to hear it, is me trying to get this baby stingray to dance with me. Okay, so that brings me joy for a few reasons. First of all, dancing brings me joy, and I definitely try to get anyone, including baby stingrays, to dance. Also, I love interacting with adorable creatures. I have another one behind me. I don't know if you can see this. She's meditating on something right now. And it also brings me a lot of joy to show wholesome things to other people. So whoever was putting the hearts that were floating up, thank you for responding with enthusiasm. I love bringing a little bit of delight to people through wholesome content like this. So joy is the emotion that humans have when we are connected in a moment to anything that makes life worth living. And we're able to feel and appreciate that thing, that goodness. It could be a very small pleasure, things that we enjoy. It could be something that brings you delight or wonder. But it's also the big stuff, the most meaningful experiences, the things that bring us purpose or satisfaction. Joy is also that response that we have when we do something that resonates with our core values, or when we see in the world something that resonates with our core values. And sometimes we recognize joy through a feeling in the body. People often describe energy or warmth or lightness around the chest and heart. We often recognize joy by what's happening on our faces. We can feel the smile spreading. Joy brings blood flow to the cheeks and around the eyes and forehead, so we can actually feel and see joy as a rush and a kind of lightness around the face and eyes. We might recognize a moment of joy when we realize that we are laughing. And for many people, like the signature quality of a moment of joy is actually a feeling of relief or peace. It's a moment that provides a break from worry or from stress. And in that moment, you feel at harmony. In that moment, you feel that there is a fit between who you are or what you care about or what you value and whatever's happening in that moment. Oh, we're gonna, sorry about that. Now I wanted to ask you, now that I've described what joy is, if you'd be willing to share something in the chat that brings you joy. And again, it can be a really small joy. It can be the most meaningful joy in your life. Joy has a very broad spectrum. Okay, thank you. Now I'm seeing some stuff pop in. Wonderful. I see a theme emerging. I love that 80s music. I think I'm going to need a specific example Dancing with the Stars last night, hair metal. How about that? If you're not in the chat, it's really nice just to actually see what's flowing in now. And we're seeing themes. I've asked thousands of people all over the world what brings them joy. It's always very similar to what's being shared in the chat right now. It's things like nature and beauty. It's things like the people in our lives we care about. It's things that we might describe as fun or enjoyable, and it's also things that resonate with what feels good and meaningful and purposeful, like reminiscing about meaningful times, like helping other people. Great. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Um, People often ask me what the difference between joy and happiness is. And I think that this is actually a really good place to start because it allows me to explain why joy is possible even when circumstances are not what you would describe as happy. So, as a psychologist, if I were to give you a survey that says, on a scale of 1 to 10, please rate how happy you are or how happy are you? Most people getting a survey like that are going to do this kind of calculation about the entirety of not just their life, but the world. They're going to think, do I have everything that I want? Is everything going well with my relationships, with work, with family, with all of my goals, with my health? How do I feel about the state of the world? Um, or am I worried about something? Am I dealing with some kind of conflict? Am I still carrying the feelings of loss from something that happened? And if that's the case, and if life isn't perfect in every way, a lot of times people struggle to declare themselves as happy. But joy is really different. Joy happens in moments. The actual time scale of joy unfolding is on the order of seconds to maybe minutes. Joy happens in these flashes of feeling that really function as a kind of signal that says, in this moment, life is good. I belong. Good things are possible. I matter. I'm not alone. And it doesn't require the absence of problems, pain, or even suffering. It just requires the presence of at least one thing that you recognize as good or as making life worth living or as meaningful to you. And a mindset that can appreciate it, and often a willingness to be able to acknowledge and to even share that with others. And this difference between happiness and joy, I think one of the things that has really stood out to me from talking to people about joy is that when I've asked them to describe their most memorable experiences of joy, people have often shared memories that objectively are not positive, that the circumstance itself is one of those circumstances that actually most people would rather avoid. And yet something occurred in that circumstance that made someone feel better, that was uplifting, maybe that reminded them that they weren't alone, or that gave them some sense of meaning or mattering or caring. Uh, and I can give you an example from my own life that I think, again, really highlights the difference between joy and what we sometimes talk about as happiness or the quest for happiness. Um, so my father was very recently diagnosed with a cancer that can't be treated. And he entered palliative and home hospice care. And in my first visit to him recently, we sat on the couch and he played some of his favorite music. And he shared with me a memory that he'd never told me about before. I mentioned that I love dancing. My father's 81 years old. I'd never seen him dance like in my entire life. And he told me about how when he was in the seminary training to be a priest as a young man, they weren't allowed to dance, but he would sneak into the rec room and play on the record player, the Mamas and the Papas, Do You Want to Dance? And he showed me the dance that he used to do to that song. And it was the first time that we'd ever danced together. And in that moment, there was real joy, even though the circumstance was objectively not happy. And it was a moment that affirmed our connection, that made us feel closer, that affirmed the value and meaning of his life through memories, but also the value of the time that we had together in that moment, that affirming that he was still alive and we were still together. That's joy. And as you heard, I'm a psychologist. And, for the past 25 years, I've really focused on the human strengths that help people get through hard times, often together. So things like courage, things like self control, and especially compassion, the ability to respond to difficulties in a way that makes things better. And for the past 5 years or so, I've just really come to see joy as one of those core human strengths that, like courage or compassion, uh, allows us to get through hard times, to do hard things, to create a life of meaning, and to strengthen communities. And rather than being like a reward for when life goes well, and rather than being something frivolous that's nice if it happens, that joy is as important to human survival as things like our willingness to care for one another when things go wrong, or our ability to do things that are difficult but important because they're consistent with our values. And my goal today, so for the next like half hour or so, I'm going to share with you some ideas from the science of emotion, the science of joy, that I think helps us understand why joy matters and also how joy works. Because I'm going to encourage you to actually try to experience joy, to allow joy to serve this role in your life. And to do that, it really helps to understand joy as an active process rather than simply a reward or something that arrives. There's a way that joy works that allows us to experience its benefits more fully. I'm just going to close off this chat now. Okay, so the first idea that I want to share with you has to do with the most important function for joy, why it is that human beings have the capacity to feel joy in the way that I've described it. And that is that joy is a signal of meaning or a signal of the presence of something that is meaningful. And when you experience any moment of joy, all the things that you were entering in the chat, whether you're playing with your grandchildren or hearing a song that you love or reminiscing about favorite memories or helping someone out or enjoying nature, all of that stuff, even when I was dancing with the baby stingray, in all of those moments, what happens in the brain is a really interesting co-activation of two systems that produces a powerful uplift that is important information that is received by you, by your brain and your body as a powerful, important signal about life. And it comes from the co-activation of the reward system, which is the system of your brain that basically says, I like this, this is good, I want this, I'm going to engage in this. And when the reward system recognizes the presence of something good or something enjoyable, something pleasurable, you get a burst of brain chemicals, including dopamine and endorphins and endocannabinoids, which together increase energy, boost mood, relieve physical pain, and relieve physical stress. These brain chemicals also make it easier to connect with other people. It's kind of interesting. So, particularly endorphins and endocannabinoids, when you get a spike in them, if you're someone who experiences social anxiety, that dims a little bit. If you're introverted, you might momentarily become a little more extroverted. If you're cynical, you become a little less cynical. It's easier to connect and engage. So you get this biochemical burst of pleasure or reward that just makes you feel better and opens the door to connecting with others. But joy also activates another system of the brain, the meaning system, that tracks how aligned you are with your core values and the things that matter most to you. So, in the same way that there are parts of the brain lower in the brain, like the brainstem, that are monitoring things like blood glucose and breathing to make sure that you stay alive. The meaning system of the brain, which includes a lot of the cortical regions, the prefrontal cortex, and moving back, the meaning system is tracking, okay, very important for survival. Am I connected to the things that are important to me? Am I connected to my values? Am I connected to other people and communities and goals that I care about? And in the same way that the reward system gives you a little jolt of pleasure when you just experience something good, in a moment of joy, the meaning system gives you a really clear signal that says you are aligned with what matters to you. And it's a really great sensation, sometimes described as an ideal fit between who you are and the world around you. And this is why even very small moments of joy, the tiniest things that give you that feeling of uplift, contribute to a broader sense of meaning, purpose, belonging, connection. We know that the more moments of joy people have in everyday life, the more they say that they have lots of reasons to live, the more likely they are to say that they feel like a good person with something to contribute to the world, the more likely they are to say that they have purpose in life and that they have hope about the future. And so often when we think about big things like meaning, belonging, feeling like a good person with something to contribute, we don't think about joy as the essential signal that lets us know these things are true. But when you actually look at how humans experience life, it's often not the huge objective achievements that, make us feel like we matter or that we have hope. It's actually more often the small moments of uplift that come from everyday joys or meaningful moments of connection with others and our ability to appreciate those things. So, the next idea that I want to share with you about what joy does and why it's so important is that as an emotion, joy is better at bringing people closer together than any other emotion. So, when people experience any emotion together at the same time, it can bring them closer together. Um, but joy does it more effectively and more powerfully than other emotions, and in a way that increases trust, liking, bonding, that really strengthens a relationship. And one of the reasons that experiencing joy with another person, for example, even just laughing together over something or playing a game, enjoying a positive experience, enjoying each other's company, being inspired by something together, working together towards a shared purpose, all of these things count as shared joy. When you experience them with another person, you become physiologically linked in a way that some neuroscientists describe as we mode, like as opposed to me mode, we're in we mode. And it's a true state of biological togetherness and connection. Your heart rhythms, your autonomic nervous system activity become aligned, and your brains actually speak to one another. This is where it starts to sound a little woo-woo. I will admit to this, but somehow separate human brains organize their activity in a way that looks like a shared state, a shared mental state, and a shared system rather than two brains side by side. And the images that you're looking at here, they're pulled from research studies where people were experiencing joy together. The picture of two brains connected through Wii mode. They were playing the piano together, and the image of four brains all connected. They were playing guitars together. I chose these, but there are many studies that show a similar type of brain to brain connectivity and biological togetherness from any type of shared positive emotion, like watching a funny movie together, cooking together. One study, because I saw this came up in the chat. So one study actually looked at joy from kissing your romantic partner, and they saw a similar state of brain connectivity. But really, it's any experience where both of you are experiencing joy at the same time and resonating with one another through that experience. And as you can see, these are like literally mapping electrodes on one person's brain, and the brains are influencing each other. The most important part, that all sounds very very strange to measure, is that somehow we sense it as human beings. And when you are side by side with someone else experiencing joy, or face to face experiencing joy with someone, somehow your brain and body recognize that you are in we mode, and it creates a really powerful feeling of closeness. Like when my father and I were doing the "Do you want to dance" together. And this is one of the reasons why experiencing joy with someone else is such a powerful predictor of trust and commitment and felt closeness in a relationship. And also, people, when they experience joy with someone, are more likely to say that they believe that that person would support them when life is difficult, that we experience shared joy as an indicator that somebody cares about us and therefore would be a support for us when we need it. We also know the same is true for communities. Communities that experience joy together experience more trust and more commitment and more positive interdependence. So, more likely to help one another and more willing to receive help. Okay, and the last thing that I wanted to say about why even small moments of joy matter is because joy changes what's happening in your body in a way that provides an antidote to the physiology of stress and other states that we might describe as chronic threat states, like loneliness or hopelessness, depression, or even despair. Every time you experience any form of joy, whether it's the kind of triumph you see with these two women who are celebrating and they're getting an endorphin rush and an adrenaline rush, or whether on the other far side, you can imagine a moment of joy in a situation that's difficult, but that joy, that uplift, that relief that comes from feeling supported and knowing that you aren't alone, that's going to look physiologically a bit different. Maybe an increase in oxytocin that helps you feel connected and also safe and even brave. And you might see a kind of calming in the nervous system rather than that adrenaline rush. We also know that when we experience appreciation, it's like you see something beautiful in nature or you admire the good in another human being, that when you experience that kind of appreciation, that state of joy, it's its own unique kind of physiology that balances the nervous system and creates a kind of like biology of hope in the body, renewed energy, uh, boosted immune system. By the way, that picture in the middle, I picked that picture because there was a study that asked people in the UK to watch birds and to rate how much joy different species of birds brought them. And this is a picture of the bird that brought people the most joy. So I thought I would share that picture with you in case it brings you joy. Anyways, these are three very different states in the body. But what they all have in common is that physiologically, they undo some of the burden of chronic stress. And just in the same way that a moment of joy can give you a sense of belonging and meaning and mattering and hope, that's a significant mental reset. Just like sharing joy with another person can create a moment of physiological togetherness that actually strengthens the relationship. Every time you allow yourself to experience even a brief moment of joy, it's a kind of physiological reset that helps us survive and thrive, even when we're also dealing with other things that might have a physiological toll on our well being. And that's probably one of the reasons why, again, people who report experiencing more joy tend to live longer. There's a these studies have been done all over the world. It's actually fascinating. Joy seems to extend the lifespan all over the globe. One study I saw estimated it as about 8 years of extra life if you're a particularly joyful person. And by the way, that's different than having an easy life or a happy life, right? It's being joyful doesn't require having a life free of problems. Okay, so I've described this idea that joy in the moment can be meaningful, that it is biologically consequential in a way that helps us thrive, that helps us connect, and that helps us deal with life's difficulties. But another idea that I want you to think about for yourself is that we don't have to wait for joy to just happen to us. That joy is also an active coping strategy, that we can look for opportunities to notice the good and appreciate the good in a way that gives rise to joy. We can look for opportunities to do things that bring us joy or bring other people joy. We can actually create acts of joy that are intended to let other people know that they matter, or to create opportunities to laugh together, or to do good together. And one of the clearest examples of this for me was in February and March 2020. And maybe some of you have a memory of this too. Um, During the very first COVID-19 quarantines. If you might remember, all over the world, when the quarantines were happening and people were isolated, in those locations where people became isolated and the fear was so intense and the uncertainty and the confusion were so overwhelming, in the places where the fear, the uncertainty, and the isolation were the worst, you started to see these videos of people engaging in like outbursts of joy, like singing out their windows with their neighbors, doing balcony concerts or rooftop dance parties, putting signs in their window to try to encourage others. There was the collective cheering and applause for people who were serving in the pandemic. And many, many people looked for ways to help in order to experience both that warm glow of doing good, but also to send the message to others that they aren't alone. And in fact, researchers actually asked people, why are you doing this? What is the purpose of singing with your neighbor or putting a sign in your window? And people said things like this. These are direct quotes. It's a lifeline. It's a hymn to hope. It's a manifestation of unity against fear, a way of saying we are alive, a way to encourage, and a way to help. And it was as if in these little pockets where people were experiencing a sudden surge, fear and isolation, there was this instinct to affirm connection, to tell people that they aren't alone, and to affirm that life still has value, that we are still alive, and that good things are possible. I think that's a really beautiful human instinct, one to appreciate and nurture in yourself. But one thing I know as a psychologist is that every human instinct that exists also has counter instincts, things that get in the way, and often for a good reason. You know, we have counter instincts often to protect us or to serve some other goal, some competing goal. And when I talk to people about joy, there are certain counter instincts that come up again and again. And one is a kind of fear or discomfort with joy in the moment that you feel it. That when you feel that lightness in your heart or that sense of closeness to someone, where you feel a bit of hope rising, there's often a sense of, wait a minute, if I let myself feel really good right now, I might be setting myself up to feel worse later. There might be a fear that if you let yourself feel or show joy, you're going to get caught off guard when something bad happens. And it makes a lot of sense that we would have this fear because, of course, joy is telling you that in this moment you are connected to something meaningful or important, someone or something you love. And the truth of human existence is all of those things are things that you can lose. And so it makes sense that when we feel joy, there can be this counter rising instinct of acknowledging how much this matters and the possibility of loss. And for a lot of people, that leads to dampening down that joy or even trying to avoid joy to avoid that feeling of vulnerability. Another counter instinct that often comes up around joy is a concern that maybe I don't deserve joy or that it's wrong to want joy or to feel joy or to show joy when there are so many problems in the world. There's a sense of maybe it's just not right to not be 100% focused all of the time on what's wrong and how to fix it, the pain or suffering in our own lives or in others, as if feeling joy negates the reality of pain or suffering. Now, when you look at how joy actually functions, it doesn't negate the reality of suffering. It can provide some relief. And what joy really does is it simply affirms our humanity and it affirms the value of life. But it can be very easy in the moment to worry that somehow joy is not appropriate. Hopefully, some of the science I've shared can help you if you experience that kind of obstacle, can help you have a bit of a mindset reset around that. And then another obstacle that often comes up is the concern of that it might be like foolish or embarrassing to really show joy, that somehow it's not cool, or it's not serious, or it's not smart, or it's not appropriate to be outwardly visibly joyful. In a moment, I'm going to show you some science to hopefully argue against that obstacle. But again, it often leads people to shut down their own expressions of joy out of fear of being ridiculed or being judged or making other people uncomfortable or triggering envy or resentment in others. We can worry about other people's response to our joy. And so we just start to shut it all down or even avoid things that give us joy. Those of you who have like middle school to college year kids may notice some of the stuff going on. There's a lot going on in youth where you're trying to figure out who and what you're allowed to love and be enthusiastic about and care about. And depending on the signals you get from your peers, from culture, from your parents, from the world around you, it can be hard to navigate exactly how much joy you're allowed to feel or show about the things that actually bring you joy or purpose or meaning. So I wanted to give you a few strategies for how you can't force other people to be joyful. I know I'm giving you a talk about this. It's kind of my role. They asked me to do this. If you try to give somebody else a lecture about joy, it may not go that well, but you can be a role model of joy, and you certainly are deserving of joy. So I'm going to talk to you about how to embrace the idea that joy matters, it's possible even when life is difficult, and that there are things you can do that make joy more possible. And that's true even if you feel like your capacity for joy has been diminished by the type of life experiences that really can get in the way of feeling joy, things like grief or illness. The strategies I'm going to share with you have been shown to also help reawaken the capacity for joy if it's been dulled or diminished, either for physical, psychological, or life reasons. Okay, so the first is joy watching. And the image that I've chosen is going to help me tell you the story of how to do this. So, joy watching, it's basically the idea is that you are going to expect that every day there is going to be an opportunity to take joy in something or to create a moment of joy for someone. That someone could be yourself. And the model I want to give you comes from studies that have analyzed people's behavior when they go to observatories and look through giant telescopes. So you might even imagine yourself in that scenario. And I will walk you through the behavioral analyses. It's a really great like instruction manual for how to joy watch in everyday life. So when people go to an observatory, they have the expectation that they are going to be able to see, experience, find, and share something wonderful or delightful or beautiful. So there's an expectation that this is going to be possible in this moment, in this reality. And then they look for it, right? You look into the telescope, you look at the night sky, and you're actively looking for something to appreciate. That's the second part. And then Because the night sky is marvelous, people always find something, whether it's a shooting star or a moon or just all the stars or a planet, whatever is there to admire or appreciate. They see something and they usually acknowledge it. Something like, whoa, wow. There's always some like verbal outburst. And then they settle in and they take it in. Now, with a telescope, they often do that just by looking, breathing. And in that moment of choosing to actively take it in, that's when the researchers see the transformation unfold. Smiles, or maybe the forehead relaxes, the shoulders drop down. You can see the physiology of joy taking place, that physiology that is healing and uplifting and connecting. And then the last thing that happens almost every time is they pull back from the telescope and they try to share it with somebody else. If they're with a friend or family member, they're like, you need to see this. If they're with a guide, maybe they thank them for sharing that experience with them and helping them see this thing that they appreciated. So, this is a really good model or map for how to approach joy in everyday life. That you wake up every day with the expectation that you will be able to find something, something good in the world, something good in other people, something good in yourself, something to appreciate. And that when you do, you're going to take a moment to acknowledge it to yourself and to take it in, to allow yourself to feel whatever you can feel, to slow down and savor it. And if you have the opportunity to share it with someone else, whether that's, taking a photo to send someone or inviting someone to join you, or even thinking about how you're going to tell someone about this positive experience later, but finding a way to think about allowing this experience of joy to invite somebody else into it, to join you in it. That's joy watching. Now, I have one other strategy to share with you. And to share the strategy with you, I have to explain something about how joy works. And I call this the champagne model of joy. So, in some of my surveys, when I've asked people all over the world to talk about joy, tell me about joy, one of the questions I ask is, what does joy feel like? And one of the first themes that I noticed emerging is people would describe joy as like something inside of you that wants to get out. And you can see in this slide a few of those descriptions that it's just joy is too big for you. It wants to burst out. You become overflowing with it. It spills out. And had a video to share with you about this, but I think the sound wasn't coming through. So I'm gonna reenact this video for you. Um, it's like a really good example. You can imagine this. Was a video of a third grade teacher who had promised her students hot chocolate if she made this really difficult basketball shot. And you see the playground is covered with kids watching, still watching and waiting. And the teacher aims her shot, makes the shot, whoosh, goes through the basket. Every child on that playground erupts in joy. They start jumping up and down, screaming. The kid with the basketball throws it in the air and catches it. It literally joy bursts forth. So you've seen some of this happen. You know what it looks like when someone has joy that they can't control, whether it's laughter or tears of joy or hugging someone in a reunion or jumping up and down because you're going to get hot chocolate, or what your dog looks like when your dog hasn't seen you in a while, that kind of uncontained joy. Um, and I thought a lot about why this is such a, oh, there's the video for you. What people are really explaining about joy. And if you look at joy as an emotion and what distinguishes it from other emotions, joy looks like an emotion that was designed to be transmitted from one person to another person through expressions of joy. And if you want a really good contrast, think about an emotion like envy. And if I were to ask you, what does joy look like on the face? You might describe smiles. You might describe that, again, that glow around the eye and the forehead. You might describe tears of joy. If I ask you, what does envy look like as a facial expression? You really shouldn't have a clear picture because there actually is no facial expression for envy. If I ask you what joy sounds like, you might describe cheers or shouts. Well, actually, I think I was told that this actually did work. We have a minute for this. I am going to share with you an audio map of the sounds of joy. So you can try to predict for yourself. What do you think joy sounds like? And in a moment, I'm going to try. Oh, okay. I don't know what that sound was, but here we go. Hopefully this works. Okay, so there are many sounds that around the world people recognize as having the essence of joy, even though they're different sounds. And I'm about to play you some audio clips that these are real emotional expressions. So they actually reflect an emotion, and they're taken from cultures all over the world. I think these vocal clips are from China, India, the United States, South Africa, and Venezuela. Anyways, they're from very different cultures and communities, and they are universally recognizable as having the essence of joy. So we've got laughter. We also have like that really excited, triumphant joy. I'm going to try to avoid giving you sounds of disgust and contempt. Let's avoid those. So those might be people who are looking through the telescope. We have that quality of positive surprise and awe. We have relief. I think they were enjoying maybe something delicious. And again, all of these sounds, they are universally recognizable as joy. Okay, let me stop that share and go back to my slides, sort of what the point of that was. Okay, so the idea, again, joy has all of these verbal expressions, sounds that we associate with joy. What's the sound of envy? There is none. Joy has body language. We show joy through, lifting our hands. We show joy sometimes hands to the heart. People flap their hands with joy. We communicate joy through touch, through high fives and hugs. That we sometimes people collapse to their knees in joy. If I ask you, show me envy in body language, in gestures, you wouldn't be able to because there is no body language of envy. And the reason I want to give you this contrast is different emotions have different features. Emotions that are meant to be private, that primarily act on you for you to feel and figure out the meaning of and sort out, they don't have a lot of expressive channels. An emotion like envy functions best at helping you get more clear about what you want and how to get it when you don't share it with other people. Share your envy, and there are often negative social consequences. When you look at an emotion that can be expressed in 100 different ways and often feels like it needs to be expressed, that is an emotion that is adapted or evolved to be shared and communicated, that it works best when you don't try to dampen it or suppress it or keep it to yourself in order to create an even stronger sense of meaning, in order to strengthen relationships and create closeness, in order to change your physiology in a way that is an antidote to stress and burnout and overwhelm. Uh, Joy works best when you allow yourself to show it, which is one of the most powerful ways to share it. I should also mention joy has a smell, which very few emotions do as well. When you experience joy, if the joy lasts, It's not the 1 second, but like if you're at an event where you're repeatedly feeling joy, like for me, it would be at a concert. Maybe if you'd be a sporting event, anything that you just love, playing a game, uh, you get those lasting little bursts of joy repeatedly. Your whole blood chemistry changes in a way that changes your scent, and joy wafts off your skin. And the people around you, when they inhale it, it makes them feel better too. It's one of the ways that joy is contagious. Not a lot of emotions are infectious in that way. It's because joy is meant to be shared, works better with other people. Okay, so here's the last strategy that I want to share with you. And I call it meeting joy with joy. The people on the sidelines are the ones doing it. This guy is getting some good news, and the people around him are showing joy in response to his good news or his own joy. And if there is one thing that you could do on a day-to-day basis that would increase your direct experience of joy and connection, it is to turn your joy watching to the joy of other people, to be really interested in what brings other people joy, and to become somebody who is like a mirror of that. So, for example, if your kid is really interested in something or enthusiastic about it, to encourage it, to be excited with them. If they have good news, to to let yourself celebrate it instead of wondering if it's going to last or if it sets them up for disappointment later. When somebody smiles at you, to return the smile. When somebody hugs you, to return the hug. When you see good in somebody else, you recognize a strength. You recognize that somebody tried to do something nice, that you acknowledge it and appreciate it, that you meet their act of joy or the good that you see in them with your own joy. This is one of the most powerful acts of joy that you can take. And the research is really clear that people, just like most people, do not want to be alone in their pain or suffering. Most people do not want to be left alone in their joy. They want their enthusiasm, their passions, their excitement, their good news, their love. They want it to be received and met with affirmation and validation. And when you meet somebody's joy with joy, rather than dismissing it or shifting into worrying mode, when you just meet it with joy, it is such a powerful signal to that person that they matter. It is just like I said earlier, that your own experience of joy is really how people experience meaning day to day. It's joy that's the signal that really says, yeah, life is worth living. When other people show joy at you, for you, about you, it's the clearest signal that you matter and that other people care about you. And this is something that's really in your control, that you can make a commitment to this. Um, because I know, I don't know if it's most of the people here or all the people here are parents or spending time with young people. There's a lot of research showing how important this is from parents and important adults in kids and teenagers' lives, that your ability to respond to positive emotions, positive experiences with your own positivity and appreciation is a really powerful mental health resource for young people. And it's one of the ways that you help them sustain their capacity for joy. And I know there's some years along the way where it might not look like the third graders, like that joy. The joy can be a little harder to see or feel or read. It's maybe a different type of connection, but maybe it's, allowing your child to choose the song that you're listening to or the playlist you're listening to, or being curious about what your kid is interested in for the moment they're interested in it, or just enjoying the time that you spend together and recognizing that that time together is creating that biological togetherness that strengthens closeness and caring. Okay, so those were the two main strategies, and I'm going to remind you of them with this slide. What you're looking at here are two different scales: the dispositional joy scale and the positive empathy scale. Usually these are used to assess people. Like the more you agree with these statements, the more likely you are to also report a lot of meaning in your life, better relationships with other people, all the good things that people say that they want. The more you agree with these statements, the more likely they are to be true. But I think sometimes people think these are fixed traits. Like I'm either somebody who delights in a lot of different things, or I am not that kind of person. Or you might think, I'm either the kind of person who likes to make other people happy, or I'm not. But when I look at these scales, I don't see them as being fixed traits. I see them as instructions that if you want the outcomes that are associated with these scales, meaning, purpose, mattering, hope, physiological well-being, health, energy, all those things, uh, these scales are telling you what to do. You can choose to delight in many things, like you're at an observatory. You can choose to experience bursts of joy by giving yourself permission to smile when you want to smile, to laugh out loud, to express your own positive emotions and meet other people's joy with joy. Um, you can choose to look for the good in yourself, in others. You can choose to bring to mind the things that you value, whether it's a positive memory that you're reminiscing about or taking a moment to feel grateful for something in this moment that's making life better. You can find joy in almost any occasion because the reality of being human is that that good exists often simply through our connection with other people and the values that we carry with us. And then the second scale, this positive empathy scale, it's a list of instructions. Whether or not you think you feel great when you find out that you've made someone else happy, you could try. What could I do today to make someone else happy and see how it feels? You can try out what would it be like if you really did enjoy hearing about other people's good news or good days, and you asked them about it and you listened. What effect would that have? Um, what would it be like if you looked for other people smiling or laughing or celebrating and you chose to take joy in that? You chose to recognize it as joy and allow it to uplift you. So I'm going to encourage you to think about these as aspirations you can make and ways to really harness this natural capacity that all humans have for joy. And again, to remind you that joy, it's not just an emotion, but it's also an ability to notice and appreciate the good in the world, in yourself and in others. And it's often an act of courage. It's an act of values motivated, intentional choices to affirm that life is worth living and to choose to affirm the humanity and the value of other people. So with that, we're going to go into Q&A. And oh my gosh, I ran a little long. I should have looked at my clock.
It's
We are going to go into Q&A.
It's okay, Kelly. You have brought us all a lot of joy tonight. It was wonderful.
Do we still have time for Q&A, or are we all like, we're out? We had the joy and we're gone.
We got 2 minutes. We're going to use it, okay?
Yeah.
Here's a good question. How long does the connection through joy in the we mode last? Do you need to have repeated instances to make it work?
Yeah. It's fleeting, like all things about joy. And then it's also accumulative, like all instances of joy. So the actual physiological connection, it's while you're doing the positive experience together, watching the show, laughing together, playing music, cooking, whatever it is. The shared activity and the shared emotion is the link. However, there is a lasting feeling of connection. Some studies have shown that a single meaningful experience, like a peak experience, like going to a sporting event with a family member or going to a concert, like a bit, or like volunteering together is another one that's been shown. It can have a lasting impact, not just in your feeling of closeness to who you shared it with, but your feeling of belonging in the world. So what I think this is a great question. If that's the only question we have time for, let me really emphasize that joy happens in very short moments. You don't have to try to hold on to it. Um, but they are moments that matter, that are consequential. And one of the things that I do at the end of every day is as I'm falling asleep, I try to find, I usually go for three. I try to find three moments in the day that I can retroactively label as joy, even if I didn't remember, like notice them in the moment. And I choose to just replay them in my mind and acknowledge that they happened. And I think that that is also a strategy if you want to get more out of moments of joy, to actually go back, remind yourself of them. It's a way of letting your brain know that was a moment that matters, and it's going to make it more likely that that moment contributes in a really meaningful way to your sense of well-being or closeness to others.
Well, Dr. Kelly McGonigal, I think that is the perfect note to end on. I was going to ask you about whether people have a joy quotient. I have a very joyful daughter. People used to say she's too much, but now she's decided to just own it. So
Yeah.
it's a good thing. Kelly, this has been wonderful. It is always an honor to have you. And thank you for everything. Thank you, everybody, for being with us and having fun and joy. This was a really joyful evening. Thank you again, Dr. McGonigal. Great to see you. Thank you, everybody. Fill in that survey, okay? Take care.